This is Ben Lister here. Hello everyone, welcome to the Chatbox podcast with me, Ben Lister. Hope you're all well. Today's interview is with broadcaster Bruce Edwards. Here it is. Hello everyone, welcome back to another Chatterbox podcast. It's episode 26. How are you doing today? Right now, let's crack on, shall we? As you know, I have a guest each week to talk about their job or career, so let's crack on. This week, it's broadcaster Bruce Edwards. Hello, Bruce. Welcome along.
Hi, Ben. How you doing?
I'm fine, thank you. How are you?
Good, thank you. Good.
That's good. 5 questions about radio and broadcasting, if that's okay.
That's fine. At least it's only 5.
You ready to rumble in the jungle, if that's okay?
Yep, we are definitely. Let's go and jungle it. Let's go for it.
Let's go for it. Question 1. Where did you start your broadcast career?
A very long time ago, I was still at school, and a girl that I used to talk to a lot, trying to impress her, at the school amateur dramatics, invited me down to get involved with the local hospital radio. That was in Loughborough in Leicestershire. I went along and I had such a good time. I think she actually left in disgust, actually, because then I started to ignore her. But I started out helping out on the Saturday afternoon sports program, going in and out the studio with the sports results, the scores, that kind of thing. Chappie used to do Saturday afternoon on Loughborough Hospital Radio, which is what it was called. Was a guy called Steve Dale. Top bloke he was. Taught me a lot. And basically, when he left, I then took over the Saturday afternoon sports show, and I started doing a couple of evening shows through the week as well. So that's how I started. I got into hospital radio and then joined Radio Hallam when I moved to Sheffield in 1985 to do my English degree. But that's like part 2, really.
Yeah, brilliant start to your career.
Yeah, hospital radio is the way to go. I still, if it's still an opportunity for anybody who wants to get into it, start with hospital radio if you can. There's an awful lot of people in the business who know an awful lot about broadcasting and will teach you the basics properly from the ground up, rather than you go in as some people refer to, like a sort of a bedroom mixer, bedroom DJ. It's very important to learn about what's on the other side of the mic and who's on the other side of the mic, and you'll get a lot of good grounding in that with hospital radio.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Hospital radio. It's a brilliant start to their career. But now you have other options now with community radio.
Yeah, you do. Again, they're very good, but I still think some of the community radio stations can be quite niche, whereas I think, generally speaking, a lot of the hospital radio stations are very orientated towards the listeners, if you know what I mean. But there are some very, very good community radio stations as well. But I think there's more chance, of, especially in the big cities or big urban areas, hospital radio stations are always looking for volunteers, and there's always going to be people around who've got a good experience in broadcasting and can teach you from the ground up, so to speak. So I think probably it's easier to get into hospital radio than community radio, but I don't know. It's obviously a slightly different landscape.
Yeah. Question 2, who were your broadcasting inspirations growing up?
So many, but so diverse. I mean, I used to listen to a lot of different radio stations, like a lot of people. If I was listening to Radio 1, I used to like listening to Simon Bates. Noel Edmonds' weekend shows on Radio 1 were great listen. Who else? If I was listening to Radio Luxembourg, Ollie and Stuart Henry were absolutely brilliant to listen to, a brilliant show. Bob Stewart as well on Radio Luxembourg. And where I lived in the East Midlands, Radio Trent, of course, was the major radio station, or the only independent radio station in the area that we could get in the late 70s. I was listening to people like David Lloyd, yes, the David Lloyd. Also as well, people like Tony Lyman, Steve Merrick, So many legendary broadcasters came out of 29 to 31 and Castlegate Studios in Nottingham. But you know, there was an awful lot to listen to, and I mean, I can remember I used to sort of fiddle with the dial late at night, and I often used to listen to some of the European radio stations that were coming over from Scandinavia, from Germany, from France, and from Holland as well. So I just think the whole world was an inspiration as well in its own way.
Yeah, there's a lot of good broadcasters out there, like Terry Wogan.
Well, yeah, I mean, Terry Wogan was another. I mean, you know, that's a a legend, sadly no longer with us, of course. But yeah, I mean, Terry was a gifted broadcaster. He wasn't. I mean, I'm not saying he never worked at his programs. He did, and I know he did because some of my friends actually used to work with Terry on his show. They were his producers at the BBC. So I know exactly what Terry used to do behind the scenes in order to make his show work. And he worked very, very hard, but he also was a gifted communicator and a gifted broadcaster. So there's no such thing as like, you know, everything being handed to you on a plate. But Terry was an absolute legend, you know, but there are all sorts of people that, you know, you just listen to as many different people as you can. I mean, I used to listen to some of the Kenny Everett stuff when I was, it was a bit after his time on Capital Radio in the mid 70s, but he was still doing syndicated shows, and Radio Trent used to put these shows out that Kenny Everett had done. They were absolutely amazing, just blow your mind. It was hilarious. And of course, then Kenny was also on the TV as well, on ITV at that time. So, you know, I got to know about him and what he'd done, of course, and the part he'd played. And later on, when I was working in Manchester, I actually got a chance to work for a year alongside Dave Cash, another guy sadly no longer with us. And he, you know, the stories Dave Cash had to tell were well, first of all, they were unrepeatable, but secondly, they were absolutely incredible in terms of Kenny's work ethic and just dedication to perfection, but also as well, his imagination was just sort of like, you know, nobody else could come up with solutions the way he did. It was absolutely incredible.
And was that at the Quayside Quarry in Manchester Studios?
Quayside, no, it's Quayside West, is what they're called. It's on the Trafford Wharf side of the Manchester Ship Canal, and that's when I worked for. We originally called Fortune 1458, and then we relaunched as Light AM back in 1997, I think it was.
It's now a base where Bowerson hosts their main network.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what it is now, but as I say, it's going back a while. But I've still got loads of photographs and loads of friends from when I was working at those stations in Manchester. I'd already been working in Manchester before when I was working with the Superstation and also at Red Rose Rock FM. No, it's a great place, Manchester. But as I say, I got a chance to work with Dave Cash for a year, and that was an education just to listen and watch, which is always something if people ask me, you know, what do you do? You know, just go watch what a good presenter does and just see what they do and just observe and listen, and you'll learn a lot. I know I certainly did.
Yeah, one of my inspirations as well, just for being a good broadcaster who I listen to sometimes in the morning, Dr. Fox.
Yes, he's very very, very good broadcaster, great communicator. You know, he always used to do a great chart show. But I mean, people just know him for that. But actually, you know, he does. He's had some great daytime programs as well. When he was working, last time I bumped into him was when he was working for the Magic Network in London, and I was working for EMAP at the time, and we bumped into each other at one of the EMAP awards, I think. It's going back a while, that.
Yeah, he's now working for Nation, I believe.
Yeah, it could be. I mean, as I say, I haven't spoken to him for ages, so this is the thing, though. You see, the radio now is even more of a fluid Everything just moves around all the time. 1 minute you're working for one radio station, next minute you can be working for somebody else. Because of course now, compared to even like 20 years ago, when people really didn't have home studios, now with the way technology is, everybody can have a home studio. And we just sit here and we do our stuff, basically.
The COVID has brought things forward.
It has. It was coming, but it has actually, you're quite right in saying it, it's accelerated and accentuated everything. And, in a way, it's made us speed up the adaptation process. So, it's something, if you want to say, if there's one slightly, silver lining to the dreadful cloud that's been cast over the world over the last, 12 to 18 months, at least, there's something we can say, and this is not just, for people in this business like yourselves and me, but also as well for people being able to work from home. And I think ultimately in the end, excuse me, that'll be to the benefit, less commuting, less pollution, also people getting more social time at home. Hopefully we can all turn what's been a dreadful negative around into a positive, hopefully, in some way, shape or form.
Yeah, I like to do some of my shows from home. This style of broadcasting, the podcast from home at the moment, because as you know, we're not allowed guests in our studios.
Yeah.
Until proper restrictions can be.
That's it. Yeah.
Vamooshed.
It is, yeah.
Which isn't long away now, hopefully.
Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed, but we want to make sure everybody's safe. That's the most important.
Yeah. Question 3, what is your favorite part about the job?
It's about the music. It's about sharing the music. It's not just about, if it's like, I tell you what it is about the album show. I do a program called The Album Show, which goes out every weekend across a number of radio stations. And it's great sharing great new music with other people, but also as well, stuff that you might have forgotten about. Do you know what I mean? You can't simply carry all the music with you at any one particular time. And I just like sharing great music and playing great music for myself and hopefully other people to enjoy. There's also the sort of the communication, the sort of being there side of things as well, which has been, more important than it has been for a very long time in local radio over the last 12 to 18 months for obvious reasons. No, I mean, those two things combined, that's what radio is all about. It's there. It's, you have a freedom with radio you don't have with any other communication medium. If you're on social media, you have to watch what you're typing, you have to watch the TV, you're watching TikTok, YouTube, or whatever. Whereas radio, you can just put it on and listen, and you can do something else, and yet you can still be communicating with people, no matter what they're doing, where they're doing it, or whatever. Do you know what I mean? And that's why I think radio is the medium that will persist a lot longer than people give it credit for.
I have this thing where I can remember things like different events and stuff, like history of radio, because of my autism and stuff. I have a vague memory of different radio stations from the past.
Yeah. There's been loads of great radio stations that if you could turn back the clock, it'd be great to go back to. But I think it's another one of those things where we all have a bit of a rose-tinted view of the past. If you actually went back there, it wouldn't quite be as good as we remember it. But it's one of those things. It's great memories.
Well, earlier this year, as you know, Sam and Mia started a drive time show on Bauer Greatest Hits.
That's right.
And I think his first ever song, if I remember rightly, was Born to Run by Bruce Springsteen.
Uh-huh.
What's your favourite track to play on your show when you do your album?
The problem is that there are so many for so different many different times. And being somebody who's, obsessed with music, I don't have, I mean, I've been asked this question before and people say, oh, what's your favorite track? I've played so many tracks so many times in nearly 40 years of broadcasting that, stuff that, we play every day on the radio now to a certain extent. I love it, but it is like sort of what I get the thrill out of, as I was saying earlier on, is doing the album show, finding a new tune that's really great to play at the moment. For example, the new album that's out by Delamitri is called Fatal Mistakes. Brilliant album. Great to see the boys back. And they've been releasing albums since 1985. I remember listening to Delamitri when they were first out, and they were unsigned, and they'd sent a demo tape into John Peel on Radio 1. And that's going back nearly 40 years. And yet there's also as well, there's some other stuff which, is on the album show this weekend, but you'll have to listen to find out. So if you listen to RB1 Radio, 7:00 Sunday evening, you'll see what I'm on about. So as I say, there's, you get, when you play lots and lots of tracks, it's sort of like, it's difficult to say, well, this is a favorite or that is a favorite. I have favorite bands, but then again, of course, like with many people, it depends what kind of mood you're in. If it's a Saturday night, it might be some 70s disco stuff. It might be something 80s. I don't know. It just depends on what it is. I mean, there's so much different music that I listen to. I look through my my music folder on my phone, and I've got everything in there from classical music to opera to jazz to heavy metal to soul, R&B, rap. It's you know what I mean? It's like trying to get a favorite out of all that is absolutely impossible. Do you know what I mean? Just depends what mood I'm in.
What do you think to one of the songs that recently came out that some of my that I listened to the other week was Easy Sleazy, I think it's called, by Mick Jagger and Dave Grohl.
Do you know, and I meant to see, there's just so much. I meant to go and find that. That was out a couple of months ago, wasn't it, when the Foo Fighters released the new album, I think it was. And I heard of that, and I made a note, and I've lost it. So this is why, radio production now never ends. So it's like if I now write down Mick Jagger and Dave Grohl, and I'll go and have a look for that now when we've finished, because that might just get featured on the show this weekend on TX1 Radio on Sunday morning from 10 o'clock. We'll just have to have a look, see if it's good enough, see if it makes the cut. You never switch off with radio. There's always going to be an idea that comes through, and you go, oh, make a note of that, and then it all comes back home when the show goes out on the air.
It was actually, I think, Dr. Fox, because in one of his videos he does the heritage chart on Nation. And he talked about that album.
Yeah, the new Foo Fighters album, yeah.
Yeah, because his heritage chart's now been taken over by Mike Reed, I think.
Yeah.
Something, I'm not sure. Anyway, yeah. Question 4. How has COVID affected your life and line of work?
It's hard to say, really. I mean, we said earlier on about, it's had a dreadful effect on the whole world, of course, as we know. I mean, I've lost some close friends because of COVID. It's been absolutely devastating. But at the same time, I think it's just accelerated the fact that was coming that, we're going to all be able to work from home, particularly in this business. To be brutally honest with you, I'd rather spend all day here in my studio rather than spend 2 hours in a studio, 2 hours away by car, and then spend another 4 hours on the motorway. Do you know what I mean? It makes sense for me, makes sense for the environment, makes sense for my pocket. Do you know what I mean? It's just, hopefully there will be something good that can come out of all this. And I think that will be, and I mean, I think that's not just for this business. I mean, I know people who are, in fact, I have a friend of mine who's actually moving out of London because he can now work from home 3 days a week, go into the office on 2 days a week. So he's happy to commute by train quite a substantial distance. He wouldn't want to do it 5 days a week, but if he asked us to do it, say, like on a Wednesday and a Friday, or a Monday and a Friday, and then he can spend Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday at home, then so be it. So him and his wife are moving out of the capital. So there's going to be lots of, and that kind of effect is going to be like, sort of nationally across everybody. So that's how I think it's affecting us in the sense of, the way we work. Because businesses have been shut down, it's been very difficult to get new radio stations off the ground because nobody wants to advertise. But hopefully over the next few years, that will turn around. And we'll be able to get some advertising and some revenue streams going into radio stations and make a decent fist of having some great local business again. That's certainly the plan around here anyway.
Yeah, and is the RB1, TX1 network all part of one big network?
But it's basically RB1 and TX1 by themselves. They basically are owned by a company called 57 Media. And we're aiming to keep it like that for the time being. We'll keep the broadcast focus on South Yorkshire, Bassetlaw, that kind of thing, and Doncaster, and that's how it's going to be for the foreseeable future. We've got TX1 launching on DAB tomorrow, which is absolutely fantastic. Already getting an amazing response from people listening to the test transmissions. So we're full on with that. And later in the year, fingers crossed, we're going to get RB1 on DAB in the Sheffield and Rotherham area as well. So can't wait.
You're taking over from the old Tracks FM and...
Well, I mean, you could say we're taking over from the old Radio Hallam area.
Yeah.
It just depends. It's like, basically the point is that we're going to be broadcasting from the local area to the local area with locally based presenters in a way, and interested in talking to local businesses in a way that other stations that claim to be local aren't. And that's it in a nutshell. So we are genuinely going to be, a truly, genuinely local radio station across Sheffield and Rotherham and Barnsley and Doncaster and Bassetlaw.
It's a shame that Bauer took all their shows networked.
Well, you can look at it like that, or you can just say, brilliant, get on with it and then move out of the way because we're going to come in and take over. So it depends on your state of mind. If you've got a half full, half empty glass, it's like, I think it's a positive opportunity. And great, just let them get on with it because they're not interested in the local area. They're not interested in local advertising. They're not interested in local businesses. They're not interested in the local communities. So I tell you what, we're going to step in. And we'll soon see who's the local radio station.
And that's the way forward, I think.
Absolutely is. And I tell you what, it'll be very interesting. Come back in a couple of years' time. But I'm telling you now, it'll be a very interesting to see. We can't wait. The signs are looking good for us with TX1 already. As I say, we'll get RB1 onto DAB. By the end of the year. Can't wait. The potential is absolutely brilliant. And we bring it on.
Yeah, I think they're going to banish, personally, I think they're going to banish all the names, the big companies of all these local networked radio programs and merge it into one big radio.
I couldn't, to be honest with you, Ben, I couldn't care less. If that's what they want to do, let them get on with it. Because you know what? That's just going to make our job even easier. I mean, it's going to be a tough call anyway. Yeah. So we're going to have to work our collective off. Yeah. Over the next few years. But you know what? If those guys in London want to do it their way, because they think they've got a marketing plan, they've got a spreadsheet, they've got a slideshow that says they do it this way, and everything's called the same thing from some studio in London somewhere or wherever they claim to broadcast from, let them get on with it, and we'll come in and clean up. That's that as far as I'm concerned. I mean, that's not just me saying that. That's all the other guys involved at RB1 and TX1. Just get out. If you want to get out of the way, get out of the way, because we're coming.
You're coming like a train.
Well, and Doncaster, that would be a good analogy, wouldn't it, with Doncaster?
Yeah, you're coming in like a train.
Well, yeah, we're not gonna. It's not gonna happen overnight, but we're gonna build it. But I tell you what, we'll still be here in a few years from now. I'll tell you.
Yeah, I think community radio personally is going to thrive.
Yes, it will.
At the moment, and
it will. It will
become a big deal.
That's for certain.
If I'm honest with you.
Nah.
And I'm honoured to be part of a community radio station in Hull Kingston
yes.
Radio.
I mean, and Hull's a fantastic community, very strong community feeling and spirit in Hull. And I remember that from the days when I used to broadcast on Viking Radio.
There's a lot of my friends who have gone to, who was on, like someone who I'm planning to interview in the next few weeks was on West Yorkshire Radio, I think it was called. It was the breakfast show. Presenter Chris Johnson.
Yes, I know Chris.
He's now because his friend freelance presenter Paul Griffiths, I think he's called, walked past the old radio air the other day. Yeah, I walk past these old buildings and I'm listening to the BBC now a lot.
Yeah,
because the BBC is good for your local area as well.
Well, they are, but they're having, again, the BBC are having problems of their own. Unfortunately, to the BBC local radio, and I've worked for BBC local radio, they've been going through a process in the last 20 odd years of just like, cutbacks and cutbacks and cutbacks and cutbacks. And I mean, BBC radio stations now have a fraction of the staff working for them that even when I was running what's now BBC Tees in Middlesbrough, 20 years ago, we had, 40 or 50 staff working there on various bits and pieces. Now, I think, if they've got 24 people working there now, I can't think all of them are full-time. BBC have got a real problem on at the moment with what they do with local radio. And I'm not certain that they're actually going about it in the right way. But as I say, I'm outside. I'm outside the game now in terms of the BBC, and I know they have a certain way of doing things, which is sometimes very, very strange to understand their logic sometimes. So all I can say is, good luck to them. I know some people in the BBC who are very, very concerned indeed.
I have seen them. I've seen it, and I think COVID, as well as you said earlier, has accelerated it a bit, the cutbacks.
Yes, it has. Yeah, it absolutely has. But I think part of the problem with the BBC as well is that I don't think they've actually not been too certain about who they're broadcasting to or why. And I think a lot of the BBC stations have forgotten about broadcasting on a local basis in terms of what the BBC can do, because the BBC can do a job that commercial local radio can't always do. And, it's a shame, because if the BBC did things right, because of the way the BBC is funded by the license fee, they can do things that we just couldn't do in commercial radio. I mean, even when I was at Radio Hallam 40 years ago, or Radio Trent, or Leicester Sound, there are some things the BBC can do that we just simply can't do in commercial radio, and the forgetting it and the walking away. And I'm not certain that there's anybody, as I say, in BBC local radio who's got any confidence in the future about what's actually happening in BBC local radio. It's a shame, because they really should be able to step into the breach, if you like, with what's happening with Global and Bauer, but unfortunately
do you
they're
know
not.
anyone who works in this region on the BBC?
Yes, I do. I've got several friends who work in this region on the BBC. Yeah.
Any presenters?
And also in the northeast and in Manchester, and everybody has a very negative view of the the general lack of direction and lack of certainty about from London about what BBC local radio is either expected to do or should be doing. I don't think many people have got much confidence in the way that BBC local radio is going at the moment. It just seems to be going downhill all the time. And it's a shame because, speaking as somebody who used to be involved in BBC local radio, it could be doing so much more.
Yeah, I agree. And some of my friends work for the BBC, as I said, in this region. And some work down in the other regions, like some of the presenters who I know, like Steve Jordan. Well, Hairstyle used to be on Radio Leeds and up here we have people like James Picos, I think his name is. If you've heard of him.
I think I've heard of the name. I don't know him.
And there's a lot of good presenters over here as well.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's brilliant. Question 5. What advice would you give to young aspiring broadcasters who are starting out?
Like I said earlier on, get involved in your local hospital radio station. Get involved with a community radio station if you haven't got a hospital radio station near you. But also as well, try to get involved in, even if it's just, I'm afraid the way the world is at the moment, you might have to do some work for nothing, but, try to build a relationship with some, established presenters at these radio stations and radio stations in your area, or at least listen to them and get an idea when you listen to them about why it is or how it is, what they're doing, what you like about what they're doing, and why it works, and there's an awful lot you can do simply by just listening. I'm afraid there's, there are an awful lot. And I've heard quite a few even recently on community radio stations in this area that I can listen to who are simply just broadcasting online at the moment. But, they've got aspirations to go on DAB, fine. But, that then they think they are broadcasters. They think they have what it takes. But I'm afraid without hopefully not being too blunt, but basically I'm afraid that a lot of them haven't got what it takes because they don't understand that they're not there to talk about what they're doing, put a big shout out to the mates and talk about what they've been doing and play their music. They're there to communicate and they're there to provide a touchstone, a platform for people in the area to feel like they're part of a community, and I'm afraid even today, I still hear people going on the radio and saying a big shout out to all you out there, which is just sort of like, and now immediately I'm reaching for the off button because I just sort of go, okay, if you still think that that's how to talk to the listeners on the radio, you've got a lot to learn. You need to go back to school, go back to broadcasting school. If you want to be, if you want to do a media course, do a media course. You've got to basically learn the basics. Well, hospital radio taught me a lot. And, when I first joined Radio Hallam in 1986, you learn what it's about. When you're broadcasting, a lot of presenters used to do this. They used to take a picture of their other half and have it on the desk in front of them because radio is a very intimate medium. And it's basically all about one-to-one. And I remember a couple of guys used to take a photograph of the wife in and have it on the desk in front of them. So they're just like a subconscious focus. You're just talking to one person because at the other end of the radio, it's one person. It's not you and your mates down the social club having a rave with, 100 people in front of you. And you're going, big shout out to so-and-so, the massive this, that. It's not all about that at all. The best broadcasters talk to you. And when you're down the other end of the radio, you feel like they're talking to you. Well, turn that around, put yourself in the position, okay, I need to be talking to one person. Don't bother about how many else are listening. Talk to one person. Sorry, I just knocked the microphone. And that's what you need to do, and that's what you need to get into your head. And far too many people at the moment just don't seem to have any awareness of that. And it's quite simple. You won't make it if you don't understand who is at the other end of the radio. If you don't understand, if you can't get that into your head that you're talking to one other person on a very, very intimate one-to-one basis, you'll never make it.
Yeah, my technique before I go into the main studio is get there to the studios about 3 hours early, because we have a recording studio at our studio.
Aha.
And do 2 recordings and record myself just to see how I do before I go live.
Yeah. It's always worth, and as well afterwards. I mean, so many top successful presenters, even Wogan, and I know this for a fact because I have a friend of mine who used to be one of Wogan's producers, and they used to have a little meeting after the show saying, how did we think this way? So they always go and have a debriefing. They didn't always go and listen to a tape, but they'd always go and have a think about it afterwards and then learn, well, if that works, yeah, we'll do it that way. If that didn't work, no, we'll not do that again, or we'll try something different. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if going to, if that means that you go into a debrief with your boss and go through what we used to call a snoop tape, but you just basically take some MP3 files and line them up and clip them out your show file and whatever, then fine, it's the same thing. But if you have to go away and do that, if it's good enough for Wogan, or if it's good enough for Danny Petroni or whoever else you want to mention, Dave Cash, anybody, Phil Wood at Piccadilly Radio, anybody like that, will know all about the merits of going away and listening to what you've done, because there's no way when you're doing it live, you can sit back and go, what does that sound like? Because you're too busy doing it.
Yeah.
So you have to come back out and go, okay, how did that sound? Did it work? Didn't it work? If it didn't work, why didn't it work? But also as well, if it did work, why? And so then, of course, once you understand why something worked, make sure that you come at, the same thing again, or something similar with the same approach. Do you know what I mean? So there's as much to learn from what you do wrong and what you do right as well. But, you've got to go and have this, you've got to be open. You've got to have this ability to just basically sit there and say to yourself, what went right, what went wrong. And if you can't do that, I don't know why you're trying, because surely you just want to be a better presenter. You want to be a better communicator, so that's all I can say about that one.
Also, Bruno Brooks as well. Sorry.
Oh yeah, Bruno's a great guy. So I worked with Bruno for a few weeks in the summer. I think it was the summer of '94 with Noel Edmonds. So it was absolutely fantastic time. But again, all very, very dedicated, hardworking. All you see is this little bit of them on the radio or on the TV. There's an awful lot of work goes in behind the scenes that you don't see.
Yeah, because one of my friends worked with a guy called Ian Collins.
Yeah, I know the name, yeah.
On a station in Kent. Because there's a lot of good presenters out there. Like yourself, Bruce.
Yeah. Well, that's very kind of you to say so. That's not for me to say.
That's it for today. Thank you for joining us today, Bruce.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
Do join me again for another Chatterbox podcast, but thank you very much. But first, please give it up for Mr. Bruce Edwards.
No problem. Thank you.
Thank you very much for listening, and that's a wrap. That was my interview with Bruce Edwards. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope it filled a gap in your time. Next upload will be with Fiona Mills, Kevin King. So here, see you in the, don't forget to like, subscribe and all that, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!